and welcome to Cottage Talk Full Time. I'm Russ Coleman. Joining me right now outside of Craven Cottage is the Fulham Shadow. In a shadow, Emilio Di Nello. This is our initial reaction show to Fulham's 0-0 draw against Derby County. And Emilio, I'm just going to go right to you. It's very interesting what happened here. We have a lot to talk about in a short period of time. Well, we're going to talk about the players that were missing. We're going to talk about the speculation on Twitter of a bug that might have gone around the club. Maybe that is why we didn't see certain players play. It's just we'll mention that as well because it is going around Twitter. But just give me your opening thoughts on this 0-0 draw.
Hello there. Happy Thanksgiving to all our listeners around the world and to you, Ross, yourself and your family. Shame we couldn't take all 3 points to celebrate Thanksgiving tomorrow. But look, 7 consecutive wins on the bounce. You can't win every game. You know, at the end of the day, in a way, you could argue, did we get away with only with a point? Although in the first half, we were poor.
Maybe.
Derby should have been at least 1 up, if not more. So overall, there are some. I'm looking at the positives here. You can't win every game, but we still didn't lose. We're no worse off than we were on Saturday. Another clean sheet. On paper, you'd argue that we should be good enough to beat Derby County, but there's a reason why they haven't lost many games this season. They're defensively very organised. They play very narrow, and they didn't give us much space. They've got 2 experienced centre backs, and it's just one of those games where we had chances second half in particular. Just the ball just didn't bounce for us. It was just getting stuck in the mud. We hit the bar from Seri. Then we hit the post from Carvalho. It was going to be one of those. I think we could have played for the next 10 hours and we wouldn't have scored a goal. And it's not just because Mitrovic wasn't playing. Yes, we missed him, of course, but I just think some games the ball just doesn't run for you. And then tonight was one of those games. So it's a shame we didn't carry on the winning run, but we're still top of the league. Bournemouth dropped points as well. We're no worse off. Let's move on to Preston North End. But it's a game to be forgotten, to be honest.
Absolutely, Emilio. And I'm glad that you mentioned this. And we're already getting comments. I'm just going to share a couple comments because you were talking about this already. This is from Wayne Waldman. Good evening, Russ. That game hard to watch without Mitro. We looked flat and Derby played well. I agree with that. Yeah. So I wanted to share that with you. Also, I'm going to share a couple of comments from the Fulham supporters. Lots of chances, but good to know. Even on an off day, we get a point. And Emilio, I completely agree with that. And that's something that we should be talking about because, as you already mentioned, you're not going to play your best every single match. Yeah. And when you don't, if you can still get something out of it, even though it's against Derby County, it's still a valuable point. And like you mentioned, full credit to Derby County because they made it difficult on Fulham. And, we get a point and we are still even. We have not lost any ground. We've not gained any ground. We're still top of the league because of Bournemouth's draw tonight. So what I mean by even is that nothing lost, nothing gained, and we move on to Preston North End, like you said, Emilio.
Yeah. And on paper, to be honest, we look on paper, and we'll talk about where some of these players were tonight. Obviously, there was a few changes to the starting lineup and the bench, but overall, you could argue that squad is still good enough to be, or that lineup should be good enough to be beating Derby County at home. But I think the previous comment that you put on there, just for me, just felt we were static. I agree with that point. Muniz had the chance to start, play the full 90 minutes. He had a good volley in the second half. If that went in, that would have been goal of the season. But overall, he just looked static. We've missed Mitrovic's. A few supporters still celebrating, even though we got a draw. So apologies, guys, if you can hear some chanting in the background. But overall, first half in particular, we lacked movement. Our passing was very poor at times. Defensively, from what's his name, Robinson had a shocker throughout most of the game. I thought Tosin, his passing was woeful today. So there were some off performances, but like I said, you can't win every game. And the fact that if there is some sort of virus or something hit the squad, then is our squad as strong as we thought they were? Some people are commenting out there about you've got to give fringe players a chance sometimes, whether it be injuries, suspensions, viruses, what have you. But clearly we didn't turn up tonight. And, I think let's forget about this game and move on. I don't think there'll be much to remember after this performance.
I totally agree, Emilio. I want to go back to some of these comments because there are some that are dealing directly with Mitro being out and Muniz. So I'm gonna share a few. And this is from Steve Turner. Poor performance, a toothless without Mitro, and Muniz is useless. And now I'm going to disagree with it, and I'm glad that Anthea said this. because it's a bit harsh. Muniz is a young and learning, different player, different approach, play needed. And I agree with that. And that's something Gentleman Jim and Jamie and they were talking about during the broadcast, that when you have a player like him, he's different than Mitro. Maybe you need to do things a little bit differently. And, Derby County were prepared for Mitro, and they got Muniz, and, again, a different type of player. And again,
I agree with
he's
Anthony.
young.
I agree with Anthony. He is young. He's learning. He is different. He's not always pleasant to the eye. Let's be honest. I think sometimes he looks a little bit static. I think he needs to be a little bit. He's not mobile enough for me. And I think we looked quite at times in that first half. It looked like we only had 10 men on the pitch.
Okay.
And maybe so that's what it felt like to me. So useless is a strong term. I don't agree with that. I would have taken him off at half time, but then some of the people around me were saying that would knock his confidence for 6, which is probably why Marco Silva persevered with him, not to knock that confidence out of him completely. But overall, we looked like we had a man down that first half, but played to his strengths. And I question why even Joe Bryan. I'm not Joe Bryan's biggest fan, but crossing from Tete on one side was very good. Put Joe Bryan on wide on the other side. Put more balls into the box. Be more unorthodox Fulham style play, and that might have given us more chance. But Robinson had a shock, and I would have put Joe Bryan on there to a bit of variation and better quality delivery in the box. Play a little bit different, play longer ball, and try to make something happen. But overall, it's one of those games. I think we could have carried on playing for 10 hours, and we wouldn't have scored tonight.
I totally agree, Emilio. And I want to mention the person who was really talking about how Fulham needed to change it up was Sean Davis during the broadcast. He was talking about, listen, you can't treat this game like you have Mitro. You have to treat it like you have this different type of striker and play to his strengths. And maybe they didn't as much as they should have. And to your credit, Emilio, maybe you bring on someone like Joe Bryan instead of Anthony Robinson, and maybe he offers you something a little bit different. I'm going to share a couple more comments because we got some good comments. This is from Stefan. To be expected, Derby were coming from a great game, and we're not going to be pushovers. Perhaps mentally, players were overconfident. Maybe we don't have the depth we think we have. Stefan, I disagree with the depth issue. I think it's an adjustment when you lose a player like Mitro, and maybe they just didn't adjust as well as they should have. We were already talking about that. This is from Martin Smith, and I'll get your thoughts in a second, Emilio. Can't win every game. Derby came here, have a great result last time. A point is a point, closer to the Premiership. Totally agree, Emilio. Your thoughts on these comments?
Yeah, definitely. I think it was about 2 or 3 hours before the game. I messaged Steve Reynolds offline. I said, I didn't fancy a win tonight. I just felt something wasn't going to be right. This was before the lineup had been confirmed. So I predicted 1-1 because Derby had come off a very good win against Bournemouth. They don't lose many games. They don't concede many goals. So this was going to be a tougher game than fans predicted. I was seeing all sorts of predictions, 3-0, 4-0, battering Derby County. But actually, Derby County had looked well organised. They're sort of, yes, they're bottom of the table because they've had so many points deducted, but they're better than their position suggests. So overall, this was never going to be an easy game. So the fact that we drew the game isn't a surprise. I agree with Stefan. They come off a good result against Derby County, and some games you don't get the rub of the green sometimes, especially that second half. It just wasn't going to happen for us. It's just unfortunate. And there was also, don't forget, there was that goal line clearance as well. That for me, it was in front of me. To me, it looked like a good clearance. I don't think it was over the line, but again, hit the post, hit the bar, clearance off the line. It just wasn't going to work. It just wasn't going to run for us tonight. So let's take the point, the clean sheet, and then we plan for Preston North End on the weekend.
Right, and to be fair, in the second half to Rodrigo Muniz, because we're getting a lot of comments on him, is that he had the bicycle kick, which would have been a spectacular goal. And like you said, the clearance off the line, which did not look like, Emilio, that it was a goal. So I think that was the right decision there. But again, we're getting a lot of comments about Rodrigo Muniz, which I find interesting. And I'm going to share this one because I agree with this. This is from Wayne Walden. Muniz will come good. Give him time. And honestly, and this is something that Sean Davis said as well, because Sean Davis said he would have brought on Bobby Decordova-Reid, but he also said he thought maybe 90 minutes plus would be good for Rodrigo Muniz, a learning experience.
Yeah, exactly. That's probably where, if I was a ruthless manager, I would have taken him for half time. But then clearly you've got to, he's a young lad. He's got his chance tonight, and you don't want to knock his confidence for 6. So that's probably psychologically why he wasn't taken off.
Right.
And to be honest, I think if he was 25, 26, then fair enough. I think he would have been taken off at half time. But Guy needs confidence. He needs goals. He needs opportunities. So the manager did the right thing to keep him on there. Although I'm probably being a little bit harsh, and maybe I would have substituted him at halftime. If you really wanted to win the game, change it a bit. Change it. And to be honest, the changes when Josh Onomah came on for Harrison Reed, I thought we were more lively, stronger, and more direct. And I thought Nancy Knockhart, in his defence, actually, did okay. Again, looking lively, but it's just one of those games. Squad is good enough, but some games you win and some games you don't win.
I'm seeing all these comments. Miss Stansfield is super sub.
He's injured, by the way. I think that's why he wasn't on the bench.
Wait to the chat. What's the news on Mitro, please? And listen, the only thing that we're hearing just in general, and not on Mitro and not on the other players, we are hearing speculation that a virus is going around the club. And this is speculation on Twitter. So that's all I can say. I don't know if it involves Mitro. I don't know who it involves, but there is speculation that is what's going on. So
I think on that point, if we're going to cover that off now, I think it's probably fair. If you look at who was not on the bench or playing tonight, then clearly, a lot of fans were saying before the game that he was being disrespectful to Derby County, Marco Silva. But clearly, you don't have Kenny on the bench, you don't have Mitrovic on the bench, you don't have Rodak on the bench. Clearly, there's something more fundamental there. So time will tell whether it's COVID or whether it's some sort of flu virus or something else. I'm sure something will come out. I'd be very surprised if miraculously all these players have got injured since the weekend. So clearly there's something probably a bit more widespread, but let's not speculate. Let's wait for confirmation from the club and see what
absolutely
happens next.
Emilio. I'm glad that you said that. Okay, so I want to get your thoughts before we go, and really we're not going to spend too much time, and we'll finish up with man of the match. Before we do that, I want to get your thoughts on Fabio Carvalho, because he had a very good chance to score. What were your thoughts about Fabio in this match?
If anything, if one person was going to score the goal, it was going to be Fabio, to be honest. I think I was saying, a lot of us around where we sit, we're all saying that's where the goal was going to come from. He looked lively. I think he was, especially in the second half, he was rousing up the crowd. He was applauding the crowd, asking getting the fans to cheer him. So clearly, the speculation is correct that maybe he is on the verge of signing a new contract, because he seems a lot more head up, positive, determined, frustrated as well. There were some frustrations there when the ball just wouldn't run. When he hit the post, you can see it was like, just on another day that would have gone in the back of the net. So it's overall, he looked lively, looked positive, and looked technically very good. So him and probably Gazzaniga, two best players on the pitch for us overall. But he's a talent here, so we've got to find some way of signing him. So Tony Gunn, if you're listening, instead of posting on Twitter, go and sign this player for good, please. Give him the contract, get it.
Okay. Yeah. I want to share this from our friend Chris Davidson. Again, we're getting a lot of Muniz comments. These Muniz comments are ridiculous. Give the guy some support. He actually came the closest to getting the ball over the line. I would agree with Chris on that. Totally agree with Chris on that. So there are two ways to look at it. And I understand that fans are disappointed, but let's go back, Emilio, before we go to man of the match. I want to talk about the players that were out. And was that the difference in this match? Because I'm going to argue that Fulham are good enough to win the match without Mitro, without Kearney, and without Rodak. They should win this match. And again, this is where I want to give credit to Derby County, because they had a plan, Emilio, and they should win this match without these players. They should, but they didn't. And I think it's easy to blame it on Fulham and not give enough credit to the opponent. And I think you have to give credit. Like you said, they had an aging defense who actually did a very good job against us tonight.
Exactly. If you look at it, our keeper did a good job. So we didn't miss Rodak from a keeping perspective today, because I think Gazzaniga made some good saves. He commanded the ball. He didn't have much to do in the second half. But in the first half, he made some important saves, and he made that crucial save towards the end of the game, when it was almost an opportunity for Derby to get a smash and grab. I thought the players that did perform, I mentioned earlier, Robinson had a shocker. That's not nothing to do with Derby. It just feels like he had a hangover for some reason. He was just all over the place throughout the whole game. I thought Tosin defensively looked okay, but his passing was absolutely atrocious today. Tete had good crossing, was probably our best defender. And again, in the midfield, I thought the midfield were just a bit lightweight. Harrison Reed, I don't think, did enough for me. Deservedly got substituted. again, too much sideways for me. He needed to be a little bit more positive. So, some of his performances we can't perform at our best every single game. And these players on the pitch, I agree with you. Without these three, we should be doing better. But rubber the green, passing not good enough. We weren't slick.
Yeah.
We weren't quick. Our movement was not. It was a bit static at times. And you could argue that might be because of the lineup that we've on the pitch. But overall, we can't just because we've had one poor performance but haven't lost, then we can't go blame it. Can't go criticising the fan. Just move on, please. It's
Yeah.
I keep going on about Brighton, the Hove Albion, all those years ago. How many ugly draws and wins did they get? And they got promoted. So we can't play, 5-star football every single game. So cut some slack, please, fans, and let's move on.
Totally agree. Again, we're getting some very interesting comments, so I'm just going to keep sharing. And again, we're talking about, let me just stress this, speculation of a bug or a virus. And Anthea brought this up because I was thinking about this when I saw the Twitter speculation. Could Harry Wilson be feeling poorly? Wasn't his game. Don't want to speculate. And Anthea, he was not at his best tonight. And it's funny because I was thinking the same exact thing as she did. We don't know, but this was an off game for Harry Wilson.
Yeah, he had an off game. It was a game with Harry Wilson. He doesn't always play, for 90 minutes. He plays in bursts here and there, and sometimes, again, he looked a little bit off colour at times. But second half, he was more lively. Second half, he had a better second half. He got more involved in the game, but he looked a little bit tired. The fact that he got taken off for anti-knockout may suggest he wasn't 100% fit. Maybe he's sort of trying to shrug off this bug. So maybe it's a fair shout, Anthea. Fair shout.
Good shout. Okay, I just want to mention this, Emilio, some stats before we go to man of the match. Here's some stats from this match. Possession, 60 to 40% in favor of Fulham. Total shots, Emilio. This is the one that's going to stand out. Total shots, 21 to 4. On target, this will also stand out to you. 5 out of 21 were on target. 2 for Derby County. They were at 50%. So think about that. Passing percentage was 82% for Fulham. Derby County were at 73%. This is another stat that actually stands out to me because Derby County had a decent amount of corners, Emilio. We had 7, but they also had 5. So again, maybe the stats from this match tell you a little bit more of what happened because Fulham had the possession, had more shots, but the quality shots on target, Fulham only had 3 more than Derby County, Emilio.
No, interesting. I thought we had more possession than that. I thought 60% is not as. I thought it was more like 70-30, to be honest. But interesting, it was at 60-40. Corners, I think especially Derby in the first half, they had a few early corners, if I recall, at the beginning of the game. But again, if you look at the chances, Gazaniga made those 2 important saves in the first half, and then the one towards the end of the game. So overall, they had some good shots, and on another day, especially that first chance, that should have gone in the back of the net. And I worry that one, we were saying, if that was going to go in the back of the net, we would struggle to break Derby County down. So in a way, maybe that was a turning point. Gazaniga making that save and actually protecting, the draw, if anything, which is weird. We're talking about being happy with the draw, but overall, I don't think we did enough to win a game. Forget the chances. Yes, more chances on goal, but how many were clear cut? Net. I thought it was the stats even themselves out. So I don't think we did enough to win the game.
Okay, excellent, Emilio. Okay, coming up next, we're going to end the show with man of the match. Okay, Emilio, I'm going to actually, before we go to man of the match, I'm going to share some comments, it looks like from Peter Rutzler from Marco Silva. So I'm going to read a tweet from Peter Rutzler. Silva on absentees. They are illness. Mitro and Kearney. Harry Wilson, Harrison Reed, Bobby Decker-Dover-Reed. They had problems these last few days. Bobby was on the bench, but not in condition to help. Robinson the same, but not COVID. An illness situation, unquote. So there you go, Emilio. This is from Peter Rutzler of The Athletic on the situation with the players. It's an illness, and it's going around the team, Emilio. Again, we're talking about a draw here, and we're complaining about a draw. And
exactly.
But I want to just keep saying this, that it's not a reason why they lost. It's a factor, an illness is a factor. But again, I think that Fulham still had enough to win this match, and they didn't. They get a draw.
Mm,
But again, I think it's very good information, and I want to thank Chris Davidson for alerting
interesting.
me here, uh, uh,
Mm,
right, to go and check Peter Rutzler out,
mm,
because Peter actually had some quotes from Marco
interesting.
Silva. So there's your answer, Emilio. It is an illness.
Mm. Okay, so so again, thankfully it's not COVID. At the end of the day, the guys don't have to self-isolate as well for so many days. So hopefully they'll be back for the weekend. Some of
Yep.
those players, or at least get to be in contention on the bench. I think Anthony's point about Harry Wilson being off colour, that's answered our question, and it doesn't surprise me that Bobby Reed was also not 100% fit to come off the bench, which is why Anthony Knockout was brought on instead. So it all adds up now.
Exactly.
So, but look, I've been positive the whole night. Trying to
You
take the
have
positive
been.
out of 0-0, goalless, top of the table. Bournemouth dropping points. We're one game closer to the Premier League. Like I said, what more do the fans want? Can't win every game.
Okay, excellent. All right, here's also a comment about Marek Rodak. This is again from Peter Rutzler of The Athletic tweet. Silva says Rodak's situation is different. Someone on his plane back from international duty had COVID, isolating.
Oh,
He couldn't play tonight.
okay. Interesting.
Okay, so
Okay.
that answers the situation with Marek Rodak. So now we have players dealing with illness, and you have Marek Rodak isolating with a situation of close contact with someone with COVID. So on a plane. So there you go, Emilio. We're getting a lot of information.
Well, that's what you get when you've got international players going on international duty. So I think that's the key thing. These players have come from international duty. So I suspect,
Right.
there's obviously there's something along those lines. So, but yeah, it's it's a consequence of having a squad that's got international players and doing well
Yeah.
in the league. So it's just one of the things we have to accept.
Right. Apparently, I must have said that Fulham lost because Steve Lydiard's saying that I pulled the Goldman, and if I did, I meant draw.
I don't remember
Obviously.
that. I don't remember you saying that. But
So there you go. There's a Goldman, and I'm not going to take it out of the podcast. I'll leave it there. Thank you, Steve, for mentioning a mistake that I made. I can always count on people like Steve Lydiard and David Holly to correct me on all my mistakes. So
how positive have they
Emil,
been tonight? Steve, are you positive?
I don't think so. I don't.
Are you
think
positive
so.
after 0-0 draw, Steve? Hope so.
I don't know what YW means, but
You're welcome.
you're welcome. Oh, talking about basically letting me know that I made some mistakes there. Well, thank you, Steve. I appreciate that. Okay, man of the match, Emilio. Who's your man of the match?
I'll give it Gazzaniga. I think Cavalier close second because he looked lively, up for it, and just didn't get the rub of the green at times. But I think Gazzaniga's saves in the first half, I think, protected the unbeaten run. To be honest, so I give it to Gazzaniga. There was a high ball in the first half that he caught and commanded well. He made those two good saves, and at the end, he sort of, I don't know, I think it was going wide, that shot towards the end, but I haven't seen the replay of it. It was the other side of the pitch, but equally, he was on hand to defend and save that ball. So overall, I'll give it to Gazzaniga because he made us feel secure in goal and protected that goalless draw.
Okay, excellent. All right, I'm gonna share this from Steve. He's positive, but should have won. That's typical Steve Lydiard. Okay, here's some comments on man of the match. Anthea chimes in with Fabio. We got Steve Lydiard saying Seri. So that's
looks
interesting.
good. Yeah.
Let's see what else we have. We've got Garrett Owenson, Seri man of the match. We look stretched up front with no holder. Let's see what else we have here.
Gazzaniga made the best save of the match. That first goal, that ball was destined to the bottom of the corner. He made a cracking save, to be honest. So, which is why I give him the man of the match.
Okay. Stefan says Fabio. So we have some Fabio. I'm going to go with you, Emilio. I'm going to say Gazzaniga. He gets a lot of criticism. And I got to admit, I think Marek Rodak is better.
Yeah, I agree.
But you know what? Gazzaniga, I thought held up very well. And honestly, Emilio, I think he gained us a point tonight.
Yeah, exactly. I think we would have struggled recovering from a 1-goal deficit if that ball had gone in the back of the net. Derby would be disappointed they weren't a goal up in the first 30 minutes, which is why I think Gazzaniga deserves credit. And like I said, I've criticised him this season, and that's had many fans. So the fact that we didn't miss Rodak tonight, that's a positive as well.
Okay, we have Tom Ashmore saying Fabio. So we got A lot of people commenting on Fabio and Seri, and you and I are going with Gazzaniga, so I like that. And listen, we are going to wrap this up. I do want to say Russ made some serious Goldmans in this show, so if you listen to the podcast, I'm going to try to take out some of those Goldman mistakes I made. I muted myself and did not realize I muted myself. So, again, thank you, Steve Lydiard, for pointing that out to me, and I fixed that. It just took about a minute. Anyways, Emilio, final thoughts before we wrap this up.
Final thoughts. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Celebrate tomorrow around the world. Happy Thanksgiving again to your family, Russ. And
Thank you.
let's forget about Derby County tonight and let's worry about Preston on Saturday.
Okay. And very interesting Thanksgiving that I'm going to share with the audience. My daughter, Samantha, actually has a boyfriend. He's actually going to join me for a preview show of the Preston North End match because he happens to be a fan of Preston North End. So that'll be an interesting Thanksgiving dinner tomorrow, and I look forward to it. Anyways, let's wrap this up. For Emilio Di Nello, the Fulham Shadow, I'm Russ Goldman. Thank you, as always, for watching and listening to Cottage Talk.